Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. Here in Confessions, I confess that I do talk a lot about SEO in various forms. SEO testing, SEO stories, rants, new things like the current March core update that started on the 13th of March. Expect some plain talk and not much engineering mumbo-jumbo. There are plenty of SEOs who relay things in great exactitude, but not in very accessible language. And I have no complaints about that. But I know I learn and retain information the best when topics are laid out in plain speak. And it's my intention that at the end of each of these Confessions episodes, all of us walk away with improved, workable definitions and understanding about what we do. Welcome back to Confessions of an SEO Season 5, Episode 12. Now, I've got some hot tea and my dog Sunny nearby. I thought this weekend when I was breathing more freely that this little episode was behind me. So I may keep this on the shorter side to protect my voice and to minimize me coughing in your ear. Last week, I spoke about what the Chrome part of the Googlebot does and what purpose it has. And we talked a little more about the new features in Chrome that Google is using to make its job easier when it comes to processing all the content that it crawls. Now, it's super useful to have that if you're going to launch a core update, which involves recrawling every stinking URL you have in your closet. Speaking of which, in my Crawl or No Crawl group last Thursday, I shared with them the following news. Thought you'd like to know that the core update is over, or actually the crawling part is complete. It's really pro forma now. The die has been cast, and it's a matter of whatever batches are left to push out into the search engine results page. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty, I wanted to share I was listening to Freakonomics radio podcast, and they had this really cool, it was like an update on a previous segment in which they had interviewed people who call themselves disgustologists. If you didn't know what that is, because I sure didn't know what that is, they look at data about what people find disgusting. They look at similarities across cultures and such. And what I found interesting was, this is where my mind went, I was sure not a single one of them had graduated college thinking, I'm going to be a disgustologist. Which, of course, caused me to shift into my fairness brain. And I was like, well, okay, Carolyn, did you ever think when you graduated from college that you would be someone specializing in the study of indexation? Dare I say, an indexologist. Now, in true SEO fashion, I pulled up a domain name register to see if indexologist.com was available. It's not. And to be honest, while I like the moniker, I could use another domain name like I can use a hole in my head. That's kind of what I am, through the testing practice of indexation. It's led me to server logs and being able to see a story in the lines of all those records, confirming what used to be, let's say, words on a developer doc. You can actually see it in action. And at least for me, it was one of those Helen Keller moments when she made that connection between the word water and that wet stuff that she had in her hands. Now, when I see a new Chrome build on a mobile Googlebot during an update, that's pretty exciting for me. I've gotten pretty good at uncovering what new treats a new Chrome build brings with it. In this case, illustrates how a news story can end up revealing itself in the DNA of a Chrome build that coincidentally shows up signaling the end of an update. Now for a little bit of tea. As usual, these things flow backwards, right? We start with a result, and then we move back, and then we move back and back and back. And when we kind of collect them, we look for the connections between all of them. And then once you find it, it all makes perfect sense once you view them from the chronological order, the oldest event to the newest event to that hand on your head smacking moment. Now, this new Chrome update it isn't a minor change reflected by changing just the last numbers in the version build. It was a major one. For instance, we went from Chrome 133.0.0.0, I won't go through all the numbers, to 134. What this version does is, hang on to your hat, histogram tracking for authentication events into Microsoft. Now, you can probably tell I have questions. Histograms. Again, these are files that Chrome uses, unless we forget, Google developed Chrome, right? And it stores a massive amount of files on our computers. I know Cindy Crum has been watching this activity and she's got some really interesting ideas. It's definitely a little big brother on Google's part. No surprise there. And I think we can communicate our real feelings by calling them histograms, as in boo. Why authentication events? Why Microsoft specifically? Now, I rolled this around, had a couple of chats with some various AIs to get some idea of why. If these things are so important, why limit it to Microsoft? What could be gained by investing in specifically tracking failed authentication events on Microsoft enterprise properties? None of these AIs, despite all the words they were using and formatting, really hit on it. And it took me until Sunday. I was following up on some questions that were sent to me in Skype, and it hit me. Of course, Microsoft owns Skype. Skype is shutting down. And we're all being invited to move over to Microsoft Teams. Boom! Now it makes sense, right? The light bulb shined. Ultimately, this Chrome build that is now tracking these authentication events in the histograms suggests that these are efforts to improve. And that's always the catchphrase, right? Is it really to improve it or are they spying? I guess there's a very thin line in those histograms. But certainly something, perhaps, to improve how Google crawlers handle authenticated content. They really do need to know the depth of how far they can go and the accuracy of what they're crawling and considering as fair game for their index. Just to be on the safe side, I looked up when Microsoft had announced this publicly, and that was February 28th. And then I looked up when Google had, passed whatever protocols they have when they test these things before they push them out for this particular Chrome build. And I looked at the date on that, and it was March 7th. Looking at the calendar, looks like someone had a 1-week deadline. Good work, mystery coder. Well, that's it for me this week. Real quick, if you're working with content and backlinks, check out Indexilla. It's my indexing platform to get content and backlinks indexed. It's completely within Google's terms of service and safe for every type of link, even your money site. If you can find it at indexilla.io, there are trial accounts if you're not sure. They come with 25 credits, and it's 1 credit per URL submission within the first month. And then you have to decide. My specialty in my work is forensic SEO. If you've got questions, typically I get answers. And to stay on the cutting edge of the state of indexing, check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. You can find it by searching for it, Crawl or No Crawl. It's even got its own knowledge graph. Thank you for being a listener. I hope I can count on you coming back next week. Bring a friend for more SEO conversations, observations, and SEO stories. If you have questions about today's topic, you can reach out and text your question to confessions at 512-222-3132. Thanks again. And next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.